So I have this habit I don't like. Every day after lunch, I drink. So I have this habit I don't like. Every day after lunch, I drink a Coke, and our director Dom says, "You know how much sugar?" So I have this habit I don't like. Every day. So I have this habit I don't like. Every day after lunch, I drink a Coke, and our director Dom says, "You know how much sugar's in that?" And I say, "I know you're right." And then I look at Crystal, has no bad habits in the world, and I'm like, "What's wrong with me?" But no matter what, as I come to the last bites of my lunch, I find myself craving a Coke. How do I break this habit? We all have habits. Some studies suggest 40% of our behavior made up of habits. Our next guest says habits are the invisible architecture of life, which is a fantastic phrase. But how do you break that? How do you end these unwanted habits? Let's ask my good friend Gretchen Rubin, author of the new book Better Than Before, whose previous books include The Happiness Project, and it makes me happy to have Gretchen here, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So how do we break a bad habit?
Well, so it turns out there is no magic one-size-fits-all solution that works for everybody. We have to think about who we are, what works for us, what our circumstances are. And I lay out 21 strategies that you can use, and that can sound a little bit overwhelming, but it's good because you can pick and choose the things that work for you. With your Coke habit, if you're a morning person.
I don't have a Coke habit. It sounded way worse than it was. Mom, I don't have a Coke habit.
Your soda habit. Right, that's not good. And then you can figure out what works for you.
I mean, you talk about the most important part of breaking habits is knowing yourself. And I think we all like to believe that we know ourselves well, but clearly we don't.
No, this is the thing. You think, well, how hard is it to know myself because I just hang out with myself all day long? But in fact, I think a lot of times we don't realize how we're similar to other people and also how we're different from other people. So a great example is morning people and night people. Often people who I know well, who I know are night people, will say, well, I'm going to get up early and do this.
You're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you're not, because you're not acknowledging what the truth about you. Or some people love simplicity and they need a lot of quiet and order. And then some people love abundance and they need a lot of bustle and choices. So what kind of gym is going to appeal to you? What kind of workspace is going to appeal to you? You have to think about yourself so that you can set yourself up for success.
So how do you help people in your life that you love? If it's not yourself, if it's your spouse, if it's your child, if it's a friend that you care about, and you see that they have habits that they want to kick, but they're just not doing it, what is the right approach there without them saying, screw you, I'm actually going to do the opposite now? Well,
okay, yeah, you don't want to ignite the spirit of rebellion. But one thing to think about is what I call the strategy of other people, which is that we have a huge influence on each other's habits. For instance, married people, really, you see a lot of health habits convergence for them. So having a good habit yourself is going to help them do a better job. So if you want somebody to be neater, you be neater. But another thing is we're very influenced by convenience, just how easy or hard it is to do something. And so if you can, let's say you want somebody to take medication regularly, you could say, can I put these pills in one of those little boxes that divides it up? Can I put it in front of the coffee machine so you take it first thing in the morning? Can I make it easier for you so that you can fulfill it?
So let's just take the Coke out of the office and then you'll be fine.
Oh, that's
to leave.
If it's out of that fridge, you're going to have less Coca-Cola. That's a good point.
Don't have it around. That's the easiest.
It's for your own good.
We're thinking about you, Troy. We care about you.
Thank you.
So what about, I mean, you're a happiness evangelist. I saw one, I don't know, I don't agree with this headline, but they called you a happiness bully.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly you care a lot about happiness.
My own sister calls me that.
Is that a thing?
Okay.
Oh, ouch.
But, you know,
lovingly.
Isn't there something to be said for, rather than obsessing about our different habits, accepting our habits as a path to happiness?
You know, I think that's one of the central aims of life is, on the one hand, to accept yourself, and on the other hand, to expect more from yourself. And I think all of us know what we can ask of ourselves and what is just really outside the boundaries of our nature. So, you know, could you get yourself to go skiing? Well, maybe that's just never going to work for you, but maybe you could get yourself to do it. Maybe could you get yourself to could you get yourself to exercise? Well, maybe you're not going to train for the marathon, but maybe you could go for a walk every day. You know, what's within the boundaries of what's true for you?
So tell us about the 4 different types of people, these classifications that you go into.
So this has to do with how people meet an expectation. Outer expectations like a work deadline, or inner expectations like a New Year's resolution. So pollers are people like me. There's not many of us. We easily meet outer and inner expectations. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do it only if they think it makes sense. Obligers readily meet outer expectations, but they have trouble meeting their own inner expectations. So like They won't keep a New Year's resolution, but they always meet a work deadline.
Yeah,
and then
that's
rebels
me.
resist all expectations.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy I like. That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
You end the book talking about this amazing phrase that your daughter gave to you,
Yes.
everyday life in utopia.
Yes.
And I think about that phrase, I'm like, wouldn't even life in utopia become mundane eventually?
Well, this is one of the problems. You've put your finger on one of the problems of habits. I love habits, but they do deaden. Everything that we do as a habit, we become more inured to, for the better and for the worse. If it's a pleasure, like our morning coffee, we take it for granted. But if it's something that makes us anxious as it becomes a habit, we feel less negative about it. But you're right. Sometimes we need surprise and novelty to shake things up. If everything's on habit, then our life can become very dead.
Well, I hope that we make having you on the show a habit, because you are full of happiness. So thank you for coming here, spending some time with us, Gretchen Rubin. Up